Howzit Grant here, and first off, Happy New Year, and welcome to the first camera comparison of 2022. As you can see here, I've got the Vivo X70 Pro Plus here in my hands, which means the OnePlus 9 Pro is shooting this part of the video, and we're going to start out here with the rear cameras at 4K 60 frames per second. And now the X70 Pro Plus is shooting this part of the video. You can see here the OnePlus 9 Pro is in my hands, and the OnePlus 9 Pro is running OxygenOS 12 based on Android 12, and it's updated with the latest updates as of this recording. And so before we get to all the photos and videos, just a quick note about some of the photos you're about to see. I tried to show you what both of these phones look like when they try to produce more saturated or boosted colors, and also what they look like when they try to produce more natural or true life colors. And so for some of the photos, I took two shots with each phone, one with the auto mode on the Vivo X70 Pro Plus. That's going to give you the more warmer color tones, more boosted, saturated colors. And on the OnePlus 9 Pro, that's with AI mode on. That's what it's going to use to produce those more saturated or boosted colors on that phone. And I also took a pair of photos that produce more natural color tones, and that's with Zeiss mode on the Vivo X70 Pro Plus and with AI mode off on the OnePlus 9 Pro. So you can get one set of photos that show you more boosted and more saturated colors, and you get another set of photos that can show you what the phones try to do when they try to produce more natural looking color tones. And so obviously I'm also going to show you all the other photos and videos I normally do with all different camera lenses, the ultra wide, telephotos, selfies, videos in both good and low light conditions, all that stuff as well. So go ahead and take a look at all the photos and videos, and at the end I'll give you a quick summary about what I thought, how each of these phones performed. Everyone, so this is a rear camera test on the Vivo X70 Pro Plus and OnePlus 9 Pro running Android 12. As you can see, they're both recording from the rear-facing cameras, and they're starting with the ultra-wide-angle cameras on each at 4K 30 frames per second. So I'm just going to pan around so you can see how these ultra-wide-angle cameras compare side by side. Check out the color reproduction on each, exposure, overall video quality here in this overcast day. And so let's go ahead and now move into the main lens. And here are the main lens on each of the two phones. So again, I'll just pan around to give you a feel for how these compare side by side. Again, you can check out the color reproduction, overall video quality. Check out the shadows in the trees. They both expose that pretty well when I shift over to it. Let's go ahead and move over here to the cell tower, and we can check zoom here on it. So we can go to 2x optical there on the Vivo, and I can move into the equivalent 2x here on the OnePlus. And then we can move over into a max, I believe 10x digital here at 4K on the Vivo, and we can move into, let's see, 10x here on the OnePlus. That's how that compares. And OnePlus goes to a, no, it is a max 10x on the OnePlus. Actually, yep, max 10x on the OnePlus. So let's go ahead and back both of these out to 1x here, and let's get back to 1x here on the OnePlus, and autofocus on the post with the Vivo first. And there you go, you can see it kind of focus in there and away, and refocus in, there you go, and away, and one more time. So not too bad on the autofocus with the Vivo. And let's try here with the OnePlus. A little bit faster there on the OnePlus, locks in pretty much immediately and away, both with some pretty nice natural bokeh or shallow depth of field. And we'll go ahead and walk down the stairs, and you can see stabilization here side by side here in 4K on both these phones and what that looks like. And I'll just go ahead and jog it to try to stress out the stabilization a bit. And we'll pull up here, and I'll pan up into the sky. You can see how that handles with that changing light there. So this is a front-facing camera test on the Vivo X70 Pro Plus and OnePlus 9 Pro and Android 12. As you can see, they're both recording from the front-facing cameras. And they're both recording in 1080p 30 frames per second. That's the max resolution and frame rate on each. The OnePlus 9 Pro does allow you to do a portrait video effect, like you can see here, this artificial blurred out background on the OnePlus 9 Pro. There is no feature here on the front-facing camera for the Vivo, and the Vivo also does not have any stabilization on its front-facing camera, so it's going to look a little more shaky here. And so I'm just going to pan around so you can see what this looks like into some of the changing lighting conditions, although it's pretty overcast today, so the sun is that way. You can see it blowing it out maybe just a tad, but you're not going to see any kind of extreme lighting conditions here with this kind of setting here. But I'll pan all the way back around, and we'll walk to test stabilization. You can also see how the OnePlus's portrait video effect holds up with some movement here, and what that looks like side by side with the Vivo X70 Pro Plus. So let me know what you think about the front-facing cameras here on both these phones. And here's some footage without the OnePlus 9 Pro portrait video effects. You can see no artificial background blur. They're both shooting at, again, 1080p 30 frames per second. And also, I forgot to mention, the Vivo does have a speech enhancement type feature on this that's turned on. So pay attention to the audio. It should be blocking out maybe more background noise than the OnePlus, especially with the kids playing in the background. You can probably hear right now. So again, I'll just pan around like this so you can see what this looks like here without any kind of filters or effects on both these phones. And again, we'll go ahead and walk to test the stabilization against Vivo's non-stabilized footage. But of course, the OnePlus is cropping in a lot more to achieve that, so you're going to get a lot less field of view. You're going to fit less in the frame than the Vivo. So there you go. Front-facing camera video test, no effects on both these phones. Everyone, so here's a low light video test between the Vivo X70 Pro Plus and OnePlus 9 Pro. This is starting with the ultra wide angle lens on each at 4K 30 frames per second. So I'll just pan around here to give you a feel of what this looks like here on both these ultra wide angle cameras and how they compare side by side, how they're handling this particular scene with all these lights. And then let's go ahead and move into the main lens. So there we go, this is now the main lens on each. I'll pan around to give you a feel for what these look like here in the same scene and how they're handling that really bright street light. Pretty well actually, both. Not flaring that out very much at all for a very bright light there. And you can see what these look like here side by side with that night sky, a little bit overcast there. And we'll pan around this way and we'll start walking to test stabilization, as well as to move over to a much darker area so we can see how these handle a much more challenging lighting situation. Also pay attention to the stabilization here and any kind of micro jitters that you might see. That tends to happen in low light. And so as we're moving over here and starting to round the corner, it's already getting much darker. And both of these phones are brightening up the scene much more than what I'm seeing with my own eyes. The OnePlus 9 Pro doing it a little bit more, at least what I'm seeing in the viewfinder. That generally comes at the expense of some noise. But we'll pull up here and we'll pan up into the night sky. Again, it's an overcast night, so you can see all the clouds there and what that looks like here on each phone. And when we pan this way, down the darker alleyway, a little bit mixed lighting situation. We've got some lights accented off the building. So you can see what that looks like here between both of these phones and how they're handling this particular scene here. So there you go, that's your low light test in 4K on both phones. So here is take 2 of my low light video test from the front facing cameras on the Vivo X70 Pro Plus and OnePlus 9 Pro. The first take I didn't have stabilization on the OnePlus 9 Pro. For whatever reason, you have to manually enable stabilization on the front facing camera, and you don't have to do that on the rear facing camera. So sometimes I forget, and that's pretty annoying. But because of that, you can see the tremendous crop right now on the OnePlus 9 Pro. The Vivo doesn't have any stabilization, which is why it has a wider field of view right now. There's no electronic stabilization, and that's pretty unfortunate. We'll test that out coming up. The Vivo also has a speech enhancement feature turned on, so you'll hear less background noise supposedly, so pay attention to the audio between these two. And also, you lose the 60 frames per second option here on the OnePlus 9 Pro with the Android 12 update, so they're both shooting at 1080p 30 frames per second. And so I'm starting out in my usual testing spot here in some pretty optimal lighting, really. If you look to the left and to the right and that really bright street lights behind me, you can see all that and how they perform here in some pretty bright lights. And so let's go ahead and start walking. And you can see with the stabilization that I'm talking about here on the Vivo, it's going to look a lot more shaky than the OnePlus 9 Pro. And we'll be moving over to a darker area so you can see how these cameras operate in a more difficult lighting situation. I've also got a water fountain here on my right now, so you can test out the microphones and how this speech or background noise suppression feature works on the Vivo. And let's go ahead and spin around here so you can see the really bright street lights behind me and how these front-facing cameras handle that. Not flaring them out too badly considering how bright those lights are. The Vivo has some kind of weird white balance going on. Also, it has its kind of super night filter on, or not filter, but it's an option that you can enable on the camera that's supposed to give you better low light performance. So check that out on the Vivo. And the OnePlus is looking really noisy right now. But let's go back here to this darker area so you can see what it looks like here side by side. And they're both brightening things up more than it actually really is and handling it decently well. I don't know. In the viewfinder, the OnePlus looks kind of grainy, but I'm not really sure how it's looking at right now in the video, so let me know. But that's pretty much going to wrap it up for another camera comparison, this time with the Vivo X70 Pro Plus and the OnePlus 9 Pro running Android 12. The OnePlus 9 Pro has gotten all its updates. I think there was 2 updates after the initial Android 12 rollout. It's December 30th as of this recording. If you want to know that, it's fully updated as of that date. And so let me know what you think about how both of these cameras performed. As for me, my quick summary and quick take is basically I think for photos, the OnePlus 9 Pro is still performing fairly on par with how they're performing on Android 11. Still pretty good for photos, but I like the Vivo just a little bit better because I like that Zeiss mode that gives you that natural color balance option. Also, it performs much better in low light. OnePlus 9 Pro not so bad in low light, but the Vivo is pretty much probably the best smartphone for low light this year that I've personally tested. Photos in low light are very crisp, clean, the lights are well controlled, and they just look really, really nice without using any kind of a night mode at all. So that's, I think, photos. Again, I prefer the Vivo. And then I think for video, normally I would say OnePlus 9 Pro because that's not the Vivo strong suit, but I'm not really liking the colors after you offload the video from your phone. The colors don't look right anymore. They look pretty off after this Android 12 update, so I'm not really sure what happened there. But the video is sharper, which I like. I just don't like the colors now on OnePlus 9 Pro. And again, Vivo video's not really a strong suit, especially with no stabilization on this front-facing camera here. But that's just my quick thoughts. Let me know what you think and which one you preferred and why. Also, if you've any kind of questions on each of these phones, drop them as a comment. I'll try to answer what I can. And as always, thanks for watching.